I've started my AAT level 4 just over a year and a half ago. I want to be my own boss. When I started my AAT journey, I said to myself that I'm going to get there one day.
I applied to be a full member, so I'm now MAAT.
My license has been approved recently.
I finished level 4 and went straight into teaching AAT, and I'm now going back to doing the accounting, which is what I started out doing. Still teaching, obviously.
Earning potential is probably double what I would make in practice.
Really excited about the opportunity of managing something in its entirety.
It's very difficult to find a job for the hours that I want to do. That would be a huge bonus if I could pick and choose the days that I wanted to work.
Having a great work-life balance, really enjoying the work part of it as well as the life part of it.
It's important to have a licence because it gives your clients the confidence that you are governed.
AAT as an organisation are incredibly supportive.
Taking the first step is very, very important.
Everyone tells me that I can't do it.
Encourage me and push me past the limitations that I think I have.
There's a lot of possibilities and you can kind of decide what you want to do with it. AAT was the best way to go. And sort of the most friendly way to go, if that makes sense as well.
I think I would be a hands-on boss.
I think I'd be a great boss.
Practical. I'm very pragmatic.
Pretty epic. I'm going to be like the best boss.
Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us on this Facebook Live. My name is Jaden, the social media executive and AAT social media team, and I'll be looking after you today. Hope you're all well. This session will be on understanding principles of payroll, which is a unit covered in the current Qualifications 2022 syllabus. And with that in mind, you can let us know in the comments what unit are you currently studying for. And if you are a legacy student or member, let us know when you finished your last assessment. So the opening video was on being your own boss, and you can actually become a licensed bookkeeper after you've completed your AAT level 3 accounting qualification and a licensed accountant after you've completed your level 4 accounting qualification. We'll have some more information about how you can go about doing so and the requirements for this via a link which will be posted in the chat. But moving forward, we are very fortunate to be joined by one of our lovely tutors at Premier Training, Ms. Samantha Hannigan, and she'll be leading the session on understanding principles of payroll. It's great to see you, Samantha. How are you?
I'm very well. Are you?
I'm not too bad. Thank you very much.
Good.
So very briefly, for those who aren't familiar with Premier Training, can you tell us a little bit about the organization and what you do in your role?
Yes, so we are a multi-award winning distance learning provider. We are one of AAT's largest distance learning providers. I'm actually the program manager, so I manage and work with the tutors, course advisors, and we put together the changes to the new Q22. I've worked with AAT through the discussions of that, but I'm also a licensed AAT accountant. So I've got my own practice. I've had that for about 15, 20 years now.
Very nice.
So the AAT has taken me through lots of things and lots of changes.
No, that's amazing. And yeah, no, again, just another example of why being your own boss can be such a great option, because again, you don't necessarily have to give up your other work. You can kind of balance the two if you want to do so.
Absolutely.
So, there you go. Perfect. But I would say if you are ready, we'll hand over to Sam just in a moment. But I do want to urge everyone to write any questions you have in the comment section, and we will get to them during the session. But yes, when you are ready, Sam, you can begin sharing.
Okay. Okay, so everybody should be able to see the PowerPoint, hopefully. So I'm going to talk you through basically the payroll unit that is in the new level 3Q22. Now, the agenda is to just go through compliance, registration, records, returns, just look at a calculation and how it works, and the CIS scheme, which I'll explain more as we go on. Okay, then. So I can't stress enough how important payroll is in the real world. Okay, so having got my own accounting practice, I do payroll, and I only do it for small businesses because the legislation we have to abide by is quite phenomenal. Okay, so it's one of the most highly regulated functions that businesses have to do. So these are some headlines of companies that have basically not abided by the legislation, and you know the penalties for not abiding by them can actually destroy companies. So it really is important that if you decide to become a licensed accountant, one, you've got the competence, and two, you are abiding by the regulations expected from the HMRC. Okay, then. So payroll's forever changing. Okay, so when AAT talk about your CPD, this is one area that you will constantly be updating. So CPD is whether it be attending webinars, HMRC do a lot of free webinars as well. If you start using QuickBooks, Sage, whatever software, they do a lot of free ones as well. But the first thing you've got to do is you've got to make sure that you or your clients are registered before the first pay date. Okay, no earlier than 2 months. And this is quite easily done by going on to the hmrc.gov.uk website, and you can set up as an employer through that website, and you know then that you've done your bit. You've got your confirmation email, etc. Every business is given a unique reference number. Okay, so an example as it is on screen is 123 ZX456, but everybody's is different. And once you register, you have got an online account, so you can keep an eye of your PAYE payments, etc., through your online account, which is really crucial now. Because don't forget, we're making everything digital, so making sure that you understand how to use the websites and your HMRC licenses is really important. Okay, then. So RTI, yeah, it's one of those things that we've all got to abide by, and we're all still getting used to. So the good thing about using computerized software is that there's so many different packages. So in my practice, I use QuickBooks, there's Sage, there is Xero, there's so many. Now, the good thing about using commercial packages is that it makes RTI so simple. So RTI means real-time information, okay? So if you are a big company, you may use a bureau, which these are payroll companies that specialize just in doing payroll for different companies. Okay, so I've got a friend who's got a recruitment agency, for instance. So if you're working in recruitment and you've got different, you've got hourly paid, you might have salaried, yeah, and you've got loads of different staff on your books, then a bureau would probably be the way forward. If you've got less than 10 employees, you can use the HMRC's basic PAYE tools. This relates to it's very simple to use. It is free with the HMRC, but like I say, you are limited to 10 employees. So if you've got more than that, or you're going to take on more than that, or you're doing multi-companies, then you need to get computerized software. And your real-time information is the information that we have to send to HMRC when we do the payroll. Okay. Now, this is done every time you run a payroll. So whether that be weekly, fortnightly, monthly, if you've got weekly and monthly, you'll process them and you'll send information in weekly, and you'll process the monthly and send that one in straight away. But it's really important that the information is sent in and submitted to HMRC accurately. Okay, so that word's really important. Okay, so if you've been studying your AAT for a while and you've done level 2, etc., then you'd obviously be aware about GDPR and keeping information. Okay, so what we need to do is we've got to be able to record payments and deductions, reports and payments to HMRC, tax code notices, leave and sick records, expenses and benefits, and payroll giving schemes. Okay, so we've got to know what we're going to pay them and what deductions we've got to take from employees. Now, we all know that we are taxed when we live and we tax when we die. So that's your income tax is the one thing that is always going to come through your payroll. Okay, but also think about your national insurance. I'll go through a couple of other things later on, but also think about the reporting. If you're running when they used to run manual systems, the reporting and the way they did it manually was unbelievable. So what you have to do is we have to make sure that we are using a system that works for us, that makes it simple. Now, if you're using a computerized system such as Sage, QuickBooks, whichever, the reporting becomes so simple because it will do it for you. Okay. Now, you will all know that through your studies, you are only as good as the person that's inputting it. So when we say, does it make the reports accurate? Well, it will be accurate if you entered the data correctly. So if you've entered the the timesheets, or if somebody's on hourly paid or salary, you've got to make sure that it is accurate. Tax code notices, okay? So we're all given a personal allowance, okay? So that's an amount that we are allowed to earn before we start paying tax, okay? Now, I say that lightly because what happens is if you are salaried or you're paid every week, your personal allowance will be prorated either weekly or monthly. You don't get paid, and then when you hit 12,850, then you start paying tax. So what they do is they get your personal allowance and they will spread it over your payments so that your tax remains constant, I suppose, especially if you're on a salary. But your tax code notices can change. And this might mean that you owe the HMRC money. It could mean that you have benefits that are paid from the company, such as car benefit, or if you receive medical benefit, things like that. So your tax code links to your account, and then the system will know how much tax you've got to be deducted. Okay, so it's really important. Now, the one thing that has happened in the last couple of years, especially on QuickBooks, is that you can now link it so that your QuickBooks and your PAYE reference is linked, and when the tax codes are changed, it automatically changes it in the system. Okay, and that's why it makes it so simple. Leave and sickness records. So we all know that we're entitled to holiday days, even though we might want a few more than what we're allowed. But your leave and sickness records are a document that we need to keep so that, one, we know that you're receiving the holidays you're entitled to, and two, that if you are ever audited, that your sickness records and things like that are all kept up to date. Expenses and benefits. So like I've just said, your expenses, you may get paid travel expenses if you're going to different sites. Your benefits, you might get gym benefit, for instance. It doesn't have to just be sickness benefit, like Westfield or anything like that. So there's lots of different benefits that companies can give you. And the last one, payroll giving scheme. So PAYE, what's it called? Give as you earn, I think really it's called. So this is basically giving to charities. So if you have a regular payment come out of your salary to Bernardo's or Cancer Trust or whatever, then that is a payroll deduction. Okay. Now we all know about GDPR and we all know what information we should and shouldn't keep. Now the information you keep regarding employees is important, but we only want the information that we need to be able to pay them. So the name, address, date of birth, an emergency contact, that's in case anything happens within the workplace and we need to get in touch with them, your national insurance and tax code, education and experience. So that's like if you've applied for a job, your CV and training records, disciplinary records, and any terms and conditions. Okay. So it's really important that we keep all this information, but we don't need to know what size your inside leg measurement is or your dress size or anything like that. It's got to be relevant to the payroll. Okay. So information has got to be kept for 3 years after the end of payroll year. Okay. Once that's done, a lot of it now is stored electronically. Once your 3 years is up, then obviously it can be got rid of. But if you have got paper versions, then it obviously needs to go and be shredded and got rid of in a safe environment, because you can't have confidential information available to outside external people. So just make sure that everything that you've got around you regarding the payroll is confidential and it's kept confidential. Okay then, so just before I move on to this next bit, is there any questions at the minute, Jaden?
None at the moment, but just give me a moment just to see if any additional ones are going to come through. So now would be the opportunity, if you guys do want to get any questions about anything that's covered, do let us know. But if not, we can just press forward. So I'll give it a few seconds just to see. If not, then happy for us to proceed. So there was a question at the start, although I'm not sure if this is something that might be covered later on, but Kieran was asking, how do you calculate taxable pay?
So I will be going into that later on. So just bear with me. If I don't cover it to the depth that you want, then obviously let me know at the end and I'll try and explain it further.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, no, you can proceed from here.
Okay, perfect. Okay then. So as when it comes to RTI, we have to make sure that we send returns to HMRC every time we submit a payroll. So I've got clients that have got staff that are weekly paid, and then they've got a couple of staff that are paid monthly. So every time I run the payroll weekly, a FPS has to be sent, which is a full payment summary. This basically informs the HMRC about the payments and deductions. So this is how they will log what we owe to HMRC for the tax and national insurance deducted from our employees, and also what the employer's national insurance is. So it includes the information for identifying the employer. So this is going to be your tax reference, okay? And with the FPS, it's a total. You'll show the totals of what's owed, yeah, and then you can go into a detailed report to give you information on each employee, okay? But when you set an employee up and you link them to your PAYE tax reference, then the Inland Revenue knows that it's linked to your company, okay? Okay then, so the EPS is the Employment Payment Summary. This is submitted before the 19th of the following month. So if you're getting paid in April, it's got to be submitted before the 19th of the following month. An EPS is also submitted even if you've not paid anybody. Okay, so if you've got a payroll scheme running, but you've no employees, you still have to submit an EPS. Okay. This shows the reduction of the amount due to statutory sick pay, maternity pay, paternity pay, and so on. And it also shows the reduction due to employment allowance. Okay, now what we mean by employment allowance is it is an amount that HMRC give to small and medium-sized companies, and it's an allowance against national insurance. Okay, so the employer is given some allowance. I think off the top of my head it's either 3,000 or it might have gone up to 4,000, but I know it were 3,000 last year. But that reduces the amount that the employer pays in national insurance. Okay, addition for apprenticeships levy. So obviously the apprenticeship scheme has had some significant changes over years. So this is the levy that obviously the employers pay and the apprenticeship scheme also generates. Okay then, so looking at how we calculate pay. So when I say gross pay, now this is the bit where you think, oh right, I'm qualified AAT now and I'm going to apply for a job. Yeah, it's £40,000 a year. And you think, yeah, brilliant. But that 40,000 is your gross pay. That's the amount that they're saying they will pay before tax and national insurance. Okay. So your gross pay is what you receive before we make any deductions. So if you're on £24,000 per annum and you're getting paid monthly, then you get £2,000 a month. But you don't take that home. And this is where people get confused, okay? So off that, we would take your personal allowance part of it, but then we would calculate your income tax and national insurance, okay? You've also got to think about then if you're getting paid overtime, commission, bonuses, okay? And overtime is normally on an hourly rate contract, and it's a time and a third, time and a half, double time, whatever the company agrees, but it would be in your contract. Again, that would be added onto your gross pay, but it's normally shown separately on your pay slip so you can see which is your basic pay and any extra. Holiday pay. So this is, you might not take all your holidays because you're busy at work and they say, right, yeah, we'll pay you for your holidays if you don't take them. Or it will be shown separate because they might say, right, well, you're off that week, but this is your holiday pay, but it should still equate to what's in your contract, okay? And then you've got your statutory sick pay, maternity pay, paternity pay, and adoption pay. Okay, so these are statutory payments that HMRC tell us we have to abide by at certain points, okay? So what we have to do is, your sick pay, for instance, yes, you can self-cert for 7 days, but after a certain amount of time, your sick pay then starts to get paid, okay? So you've got to be able to identify when sick pay comes into it. Now, you're not going to need to do that really for your exam, but if you went on to do a payroll qualification, you would have to know how it's calculated. Okay. Okay, then. So other deductions that we can get taken off us. So income tax, national insurance, and student loans. Okay, so these are deductions that you've got no choice to pay. Okay, so income tax, national insurance is done when your payroll is processed every month, week, or whichever. Your student loans, there is now 3 plans. There's plan 1, plan 2, and plan 4. Okay, so depending on which plan you're on, When you hit a certain level of pay, you will then start paying the student loan back. Okay. So, for instance, on Plan 1, if you enrolled on a course before the 1st of September 2012 and you're earning more than £19,895, anything above that level will be taxed, or you will be paid back at 9%. Okay. Plan 2 is anything after 1st of September 12, and that's gone up to 27,295. So if you're at 30,000, the difference between your 27295 and 30,000 is what you'd pay 9% on. And Plan 4 relates to Scottish students that are studying in UK. Okay, and that level's 25,000. There is one more. There's a postgrad loan at 21,000 per annum, and that is then taxed above that at 6%. Okay, so if you've got staff that are got student loans, you will be informed by the HMRC when you've to start deducting their student loans. Okay. So these are what we call statutory deductions. You've got no choice, okay? Inland Revenue is going to tell you when to pay them and when to start deducting them. And that money is paid over to HMRC. So your student loan is paid to HMRC along with your tax and national insurance. And I know teaching students at level 2, they forget about that. They're unsure where it goes, but it is to HMRC. Your pension is voluntary, okay? So it's a non-statutory deduction, okay? You don't have to be in a pension scheme. Companies have to offer it, but you can opt out of it, okay? And again, a lot of students think that they've got to stay in it and they've got to pay towards it. You haven't, but my professional opinion is you need to, okay? So you need some kind of pension pot for when you come to retire. Then there's voluntary deductions. If you want to voluntarily give your wages away to, to certain schemes, like pay some over to charities, yeah, you may also want to pay into a union. So they're your voluntary deductions. That is your choice to do that. You don't have to. But what you've got to also understand is that when they're deducted, the employer has got to pay it on to the relevant body. So whether it's a pension, they've got to pay it into the pension scheme. Okay, it's not money that's got to stay within the company. Okay then, so this is just an example of a payslip. Everybody should get a payslip, okay? Whether you're on a part-time contract, full-time, you are entitled to ask for a payslip. And this gives you information that you'll need if you're, thinking of buying a house or, moving house, renting, whatever. This information is crucial. So you can see on there, you've got a name, pay date, what period of pay it is. It could be, this one's a monthly one, it could be a week number, and you've got your tax code. So your 1257L means that you're allowed to earn £12,570. That's your personal allowance, okay? That does change, but I'm not going into that because that's when you do your level 4 personal tax and business tax. Okay, then, so you've got your basic, and it says on here that you've got overtime, okay? So your basic is your salary divided by 12. Your overtime is your extra payments above your salaried amount, and it might be paid at a higher rate. Then you've got your deductions, which is your tax and employee national insurance. Okay, like I said, you've got no choice with that. You've got to pay that. But then you've got a voluntary deduction. You've got a union fee. So people that are working public sector in, hospitals, police, schools, colleges, they'd probably be in a union and pay that monthly straight out of their salary. Okay, then it tells you your year-to-date figure. Now, your year-to-date, if you worked it out based on your basic, it wouldn't agree, okay? Because what you've got is you've got that £250 overtime. but your year-to-date figure should always be your basic pay times the number of months, okay? And then add on any additional ad hoc payments like overtime, commission, bonus, so on, okay? So, like I said, everybody's entitled to a pay slip. So if you don't get one and you want one, yeah, then speak to your employer. We get ours direct now through email. So remember that it's all GDPR. So we have to log in to the payroll system to get our personal pay slip. So really important that to keep it private. Okay, the next bit, I think this is the last bit really, is the construction industry scheme. Okay, if you're wanting to go into practice, okay, this is one scheme that can blow your mind, because this is one that the Inland Revenue seem to have taken and in its entirety and made it like a special scheme. Okay, so what happens is with the CIS scheme is years ago, the subcontractor would have a card with their photo on and their UTR number, which is a unique tax reference number. Now, what's happened is the reason this has been taken out and I suppose made as an individual tax is because subcontractors will work either for the same contractor but can still work on a self-employment basis and decide when and where they want to work. Okay. So the contractor is the one that will they will make sure that the contract is set up, they will quote the contract, they will take into account all the subcontractors they need, okay, and they will be responsible for deducting the appropriate tax from them. Okay, so if you're a contractor and you are registered as a subcontractor with HMRC, you will be deducted 20%, but only of the labour charge. Okay, so if the company pays you for your materials you've bought, anything like that, or any other expenses, it does not get tax deducted. Okay, it's only off the labour element. If you are not registered with HMRC as a subcontractor, the contractor will deduct 30% of your labour. Okay, so it is worth, when you register, if you were registering a client, for instance, and on the registration it says, will you be doing subcontract work? If they are, you tick yes, because then you know that they can be deducted at 20%. Okay, now the difference with this is they would have to complete a self-assessment. So where I've just talked about PAYE, this is now self-assessment. So what you do, or what I do as an accountant, is I get all the receipts, anything to do with the business expenditure, complete a self-assessment, but there's a box on there that says how much have you been deducted through CIS. Okay, so I will work out from their CIS statements how much they've been deducted during a tax year, and usually they get a rebate, okay, because they're getting deducted 20% of all their labour. So it normally means that they get a rebate because they've got expenditure to go against it. All right. So I can't ever say in the 20 years of doing this that I've seen many, if any, that have not had a rebate. Okay. They've got, if they living over there, they've got the digs. If they're traveling from different sites, they've got the mileage, they've got the mobile phones and so on. So the expenditure goes against what they've paid, and hence they normally get a rebate. Okay then. So we do give them a CIS statement, okay? We're not going to go into the reverse charge. That's a totally different chapter. And that's quite a new thing that Inland HMRC's brought in. So you'll see on here that you've got materials, equipment hire. This is what the subby or the subcontractor has paid out, okay? But we're only working 20% out based on their labour, okay? So the labour of 600, much is it? 6. What is it? What are we on? So, you know, around 300. Go on, somebody work it out for me. £620. Yeah. So we're going to deduct them around £620. Okay. So they will receive that total figure less the 620, and then we will claim it back when we do their tax return. Okay. So that basically summarises the payroll element of this unit. Okay. Bit of a funny one because it's not a VAT as such. It's a tax that we have to pay to the HMRC, but through a different system rather than it being through VAT. So just to summarise then, tax has got to be recorded accurately. Okay. Now, what I will suggest you do is, I've not gone through all the penalties and what have you, because there is a lot, but when you go into this exam, you will have the reference material available to you. Okay, so that's in your drop down box. Now, the information regarding penalties and so on is all in there. So there's no reason why anybody should really struggle with this unit, as long as you look at the reference material prior to the exam and use it within the exam. Okay. Then we've got HMRC request information every time payroll is run. Yeah. And this is my favourite. So, you know, we're at that time now where the new tax year started, minimum wages have increased and so on. So we've got to make sure that we're paying everybody within the guidelines. And then you get an advert on TV that says tax doesn't have to be taxing. Okay. It doesn't. But I say, as long as you've processed it correctly and everything's right, then it would be straightforward. But if not, it can be very, very taxing. Okay, so that's the end of our presentation. If you've got any questions, I will do my best to answer them. If not, then hopefully I've done my job right and you all know what you're doing.
Okay, so we do have a couple of questions that's come through. So the first one that I have here is from Octavian, who has said, so you keep 3 years, so for 3 years you keep these payroll records. What's happening if an employee needs older records for his pension checks?
So they won't be entitled to those reports, because that is confidential information for the employer. So the employee will obviously get their P60 at the end of the tax year. So everybody gets a P60 before the middle of May. So they're the documents that the employee would have to keep. We wouldn't give them our employer records, because obviously that's going to have everybody's information in.
Okay, perfect. Christine has asked, if I have an employee over 67 who is on state pension, what happens to their NI contribution, and does the employer pay an NI contribution for them?
Okay, so if they are past the national insurance age, then you would change their national insurance code to a C code, I believe, off the top of my head. So what that would do is that would stop any contributions to national insurance. So no, you wouldn't pay any, and the employer doesn't have to pay any. They can still pay into a pension, part of personal pension or work pension, but the national insurance will stop as long as they have got the appropriate contributions in there.
Okay, perfect. Many thanks for that. The final question that I can see here is from Susie, who has said, is personal allowance still deducted from subcontractors before the 20% tax is deduced?
No. So what happens is the subcontractor will receive their amount with 20% off. Okay. When we do their accounts and their self-assessment, we will work out the income, the expenditure. We will then work out the profit for year, take off the personal allowance, and then deduct what they've already paid, which will either then show that they've overpaid or underpaid.
Okay, that's perfect. Just going to double check, but I don't think we have any further questions. So, no, again, thank you very much, everyone. So we're just going to be wrapping up now. Thanks for being a part of this Facebook Live. Do remember that these sessions are recorded, so you will be able to re-watch this if you missed anything, or if you just want to watch it again. If there are a couple of things that you want to go back and reference, you can totally do that. Again, thank you, Sam, for being here, for hosting a wonderful session. Was there anything that you wanted to add at all in relation to Premier Training, or?
No, if you want to come and enrol, and we'll be happy to tutor you and get you through your AAT qualifications and help you get set up as a bookkeeper or licensed accountant. We're happy to do that. Give us a call.
Perfect. And for additional news, content, memes, please follow our Facebook page if you haven't already. You can find us on Instagram, you can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we're also on TikTok. But I do believe that is everything. Again, thanks everybody. Thanks again. And have a good one. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.